Welcome to the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans watch the best and worst horror movies and talk about them. My name is Ben Errington, and today's episode is a bonus episode chatting all about one of the films premiering at FrightFest at the end of this month. So I'm joined by a returning familiar face, Aaron Truss, the director of short film Pareidolia, which has its world premiere at FrightFest in London on Monday, 28th of August, plus producer Stuart Morriss. Welcome, Aaron and Stu. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good, good. How are you guys both doing?
Busy,
Yeah.
getting
Busy.
things all together for next week,
Yeah.
and badges, posters,
Oh, badges and
bags.
posters, merchandise as well.
Yeah,
I definitely want to get my hands on some of them. Okay, we've got a poster. Wait, what is that? A postcard.
So that's a little postcard that you can, when you go to Brighton Beach, post it to your mum. Has a
Poster to your
little,
mum. Oh,
yeah,
picture of
yeah,
Diane on the back.
yeah.
exactly, yeah.
That is a great image. That is like a really effective image. Like ever since I first saw it, it's almost like on a par with like that shot of Pazuzu in The Exorcist, isn't it? Like it's something
wow.
really
Didn't even
distinctive
think
about
of
Yeah,
it. It's really distinctive, like when I saw it, and really catches the eye. Okay, right.
Well,
and on the
badge.
badge,
Lovely, amazing.
bloody cool
Oh,
badges.
and one more thing, just while we're here showing
Yeah.
off, the official Pareidolia apron. No,
Hang on a minute.
no,
Wait,
it's a tote bag. It's not an
He started
apron.
lifting it, and then
Yeah, it doesn't go any further. So yeah,
oh, that's a shame. Maybe you should probably get aprons made as well, just in case people are gonna. There's gonna be a demand for them.
why not, Stuart? Should we
After
get
the
some
film.
aprons, some advent
think so.
calendars?
I'll just tell the audience a little bit about the pair of you. Obviously, Aaron, you've been on the show before talking about Cult of VHS, and you joined us for an episode discussing Night of the Creeps as well. So, Aaron Truss is an award-winning director and producer, best known for Knox, the Rob Knox story, and Cult of VHS. And Stuart Morriss is a multi-award-winning producer and casting director, with creation of 2009 of the Misty Moon exhibitions and events. So,
Yep,
a little bit. And of course, today we're talking about the short film Pareidolia. So a brief logline of the film is Sinead, a university lecturer studying the subject of pareidolia, becomes convinced that she is being stalked by an entity hiding within her house. Meanwhile, a mysterious death is brought up to the attention of a local priest who realizes that his past is beginning to catch up with him. So yeah, I guess we should start talking about the film and how did the idea originally blossom, I guess. Where did it come from, the idea to make this film?
Well, I knew Aaron when he was a bit rounder and a lot more ginger. In 2012, he came to my gallery, the Misty Moon Gallery, in Ladywell, where we had Mark Patton and Kim Myers from Nightmare on Elm Street 2. We were doing a screening of Freddy's Revenge, and they were doing a Q&A. And I didn't realise that he was a huge fan of that film. And he came along with about 30, 40 other people. And yeah, we chatted, got on, and he was walking around with the Freddy glove that Mark Patton brought over and everything. And we lost contact, I think. He was on my Facebook page. And then about 2 years ago, I think it'll be 2 years in October, we also run a film festival, which we've been doing 14 years now. And it was the first one after the pandemic. And he put in his short film, The Understudy, which won the Dudley Sutton Award, which was really, really cool, which I picked for the Dudley Sutton Award. And then last year, Diane was coming over to do a few gigs with us, and she never does shorts. And I'd said to her, I really want to work with you on a film. And she said, because it's Misty Moon, it's got to be a good script, no zombies, and I'll do it.
Okay.
And I spoke to Jen, my wife, and I said, but we need to get a director, someone different, because I'd worked with a couple of directors before, and they've been good, but it's all been a bit mad and zany. So I wanted to go off into something more serious. And she said, well, what about that young guy who did The Understudy? And I went, oh, right, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So I
okay.
contacted him and I said, I've got an idea. I live in a 500-year-old cottage. Diane's over here for a few days, going to do some stuff with us. I just want to do a monologue sitting in my big pink chair in front of our big Inglenook fireplace. He goes, yeah, I'm sure we can do that. And the next thing we've got mortuaries, police cars, helicopters, speedboat chases, everything. So
It was a big
very
armchair.
tiny little nugget Yes,
It was a
gone from a
huge jump.
tiny little nugget into this huge blockbuster, thanks to
Wow.
his dad.
So that's your house then in the film.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Tiny little cottage, 500 years old. Lots
It's
of
actually
ghosts here
haunted,
and
so
everything.
yeah, it's actually
Yeah.
haunted. So we actually saved a fortune on the budget.
That's
Yeah,
good. That's good.
yeah. Yeah.
But I think I misread the brief because I thought you said Diane Franklin doesn't wear shorts, and I was like, okay, fair enough, doesn't bother me. But I didn't realize Diane said no zombie films or was no zombies.
Yeah. Why
That's
did she say no zombies?
Well, I think it's because everyone does zombies and stuff like that, and she just didn't want to be a zombie. I think she's been a vampire before people have approached her for that, but yeah, she didn't really want to be a zombie.
So
I remember she said no decapitations as well. That was a proviso as well, so we didn't do that.
You had to do a quick rewrite of the script.
Yeah, just,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. It was in the first scene, and it was like, oh shit.
So
Apparently, she read the script. She just loved it,
Yeah.
and she was hooked in. She was hooked.
So Diane Franklin, of course, star of Amityville 2, The Possession, Terror Vision, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, amongst other things as well. So that's amazing to have her on board. I mean, the cast is incredible, though, isn't it? So how was the cast initially assembled? So Diane Franklin, Graham Cole, Caroline Pickles. Sorry.
Well,
that's definitely another Stuart question.
Okay.
Well, they're all friends. I know them really well. And when Aaron gave me the script, the first draft of it, straight away, I knew for the vicar or the priest, Graham Cole, because me and Graham go back 20 years. And, he looks, if he's not a copper, he looks like a vicar, he's got that build and stuff about him. Aaron and his dad, though, for Jean, Sinead's friend, he was going to be called John, and they wanted Fraser Hines. So I asked Fraser, because I know Fraser, but he couldn't do it, which I think is good for us, really. He was doing some Doctor Who convention in Chicago when we were filming, because we could only film for a couple of days in November. It had to be then when Diane was coming. So then I asked my friend Tyler Butterworth, Peter Butterworth's son, but he's given up acting now. He didn't want to do it. And that's when I thought, well, how about changing the sex? And Caroline Pickles is a fantastic actress. I've known Caroline for a few years. And then they put in also some voiceovers. And that's when I said Sandy Johnson, because I know Sandy, and to have Judith Myers from the original Halloween. I knew she wouldn't be able to fly in for it, but just to even do a cameo. And that's how that came about.
And what's Sandy's character name in it as well?
Mickey Myers.
Mickey Myers. Yeah, there we go.
Instead of Michael Myers.
You get it, Ben? Do you get it? It's like
I
Michael.
get it. I mean, it's
a bit of a
different spelling of Myers. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the cast, I think it's great because obviously familiar faces as well, especially for UK audiences. They're gonna recognize everybody involved, which is great, I think, isn't it?
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, so how was obviously, Aaron, you said about working with your dad as well. Is that the first time you've worked together?
Yeah. Well, I see him from time to time because he's my dad. And I just passed him in the street one day and said, Stuart's got this project that we want to, he wants to put together with Diane Franklin, and his face lit up because he remembers Filthy Priest and all this stuff. And Amityville 2 came to mind straight away. And I said, have you got anything in the arsenal? Because we want a good writer for this. And I know that my dad's a fantastic writer, by the way. He's written a novel called Gape. He's great at writing short stories as well. And I know he's working on some stuff at the moment. And after many sessions at the pub and around his house, we kind of settled on the idea of Pareidolia because it seemed like a very original idea that hadn't really been explored properly and could be an interesting hook for a horror movie. And I remember, Stuart and I would have conversations saying, where's the script at? Have you got a story yet? And I do remember one phone call I had with Stuart where we'd moved away from this armchair monologue thing to a basic premise. And I think Stuart was really excited by the idea. And it was my job to sort of say, okay, we can do it and we can do it cheap, but it's not going to be cheap, but we can do it. We can get away with it. And this is before we introduced an expensive mortuary, but we'll come back to that later. And my dad and I just sat down, smashing out this idea, this story. It was all my dad, and obviously we'd have to make changes, like Stuart was saying, to Jean's character, and a few other things. And the script was quite long, considering for the short. I just basically thought, well, let's film the whole script or thereabouts, and then we'll just cut it down in the edit and just get rid of the fat and keep the meat. And it was fantastic. It was so much fun working with Dad. And I remember we all went to Robertsbridge to meet Stuart and Jen, where my dad made a lot of pubs very happy. And
drunk one of them dry.
Yeah. They've all moved to Spain now. But no, it was a fascinating, like, it was just fascinating working with him, because it was nice to see how his mind was working then and there through all the drafts and coming up with these ideas. And we text each other back and forth, like, how about this? And Dad would say no. And then we disagreed on some stuff, but I think a majority of the things that we agreed on are in the film. But there are a few things that I think he wasn't really entirely happy with. But again, I don't think those are in the film really. But it was just literally because I have a very different way of working. I like to inject a little bit of humor in there, but as I'll tell you later, you have to find the right tone in a very short amount of time. You need to be tonally correct. Otherwise, it's fine for a feature because you can expand, you can give characters their own definition, but for a short, you have to be in and out like Flint very quickly. And but yeah, it was great working with him, and I know he's proud of the film as well. He doesn't really do interviews or appearances or talk about it. He lives the Arthur Dent life, and I respect that. Slippers and stays at home away from people, which is fine because we have Showbiz Stew for all that. So
there we go. Brilliant. Everyone's got their own role. So what? So I'm assuming you're on the same wavelength for most part. Do you think you maybe would you work together in the future on something else?
We wanted him to work on this, but he's handed it over for the next part.
I mean, he's a nice guy. I might see him again at some point.
Yeah,
but
we got some stuff in common.
Yeah, I think there's a nice camaraderie that we have between the three of us, and I think it was just the idea of making sure Stuart was happy, Stuart and Jen, making sure we had a tight script, and we researched a lot of shorts for this as well. And there were some shorts we were inspired by in the making of the film, but also we wanted to sort of include little visual cues or nods without being too on the head with classic horror, because that's where my dad, Stuart, and I come from. I mean, these guys lived it in the 80s and 70s, whereas, I grew up in the VHS era, as we've already discussed, Ben. But I thought it was really important to one thing that I was kind of adamant was not to have any Amityville references, because I just think that would have cheapened it a little bit. The Halloween stuff with Sandy Johnson, that's a nice little nod, I think. I think that's about as far as we push it with the references, but I wanted to take Diane out of that context and keep it original. There's nothing in there that's Amityville-ish, I don't think.
No.
The only thing that is, I would say, is the house looks a bit like it. The cottage doesn't look like the house, but it's the same white weatherboarded all through our village. It's that type of look. But what I liked about it is because, you see a lot of shorts and some indie feature films where you've got a lot of English actors putting on very fake, bad American accents, and you're not sure if it's meant to be in America, because as they're driving their Fiat Uno down the street, you see a Welsh sign or something, but it's meant to be in the deep south. Here it is actually meant to be an American lecturer who's moved to the UK.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I think that it's definitely got the classic horror feel. I think that definitely came across. And I think, like me, obviously being from the UK, when I see anything horror set in the UK, it just feels a little that realism. It feels a lot more grounded to me. but yeah, I think it definitely came across in that way, 100%. I mean, how was the filmmaking process? How was it different to obviously the production of the two documentaries you've worked on, Aaron?
Well, it's the first. I mean, I did the understudy back in 2021, I think, or 2020, I think.
Wasn't that long ago, yeah.
And
20, isn't it?
2020, yeah. And that was the last narrative piece I did, and that was for fun. You know, it wasn't meant to be professional anyway. It was just four guys having a laugh with a camera in a theater. So for this one, this was probably a chance to really relearn some of the things that I've grown up with in either in the industry, from university, from filmmaker friends. And I researched my bollocks off on this one because I knew that the horror couldn't be cheap. The story we couldn't be cutting corners on the story. So there was a lot of prep. We prepped for such a long time, Stuart. We prepped for about a year or more than a year on this. So we had to make sure everything was, all our tools were sharp. As soon as Diane hit the tarmac, we had to be ready to go. Even though we didn't start with Diane, we started filming with Graham Cole, just to get ourselves in there. And we only shot a number of scenes with Graham, and yeah, it was a very odd experience, I think, just because I wasn't used to not turning up and interviewing someone. I had to portray something that, you know, in my mind I knew was a narrative piece, and had to make it look as honest and believable as possible. And with the cast, I had no problem with that because we had a stellar cast. And everyone had their suggestions. Graham had his suggestions as well, and take me to one side and he'd say, I don't think I should do this, maybe if I should do this. And I'm thinking, okay, let's try both and see what works out best. And I tried to encourage that with all the actors. If there was a certain way I wanted to do it, we'd do it my way, and then we'd do it their way. And then if Stuart had any ideas or wanted to change anything, we could do it his way as well, just so we had alternate takes. An example of that, without any spoilers, is a certain bit with Carolyn Pickles, where Diane is in the bedroom and she remembers something that Carolyn said, and she's speaking to the camera. If I remember correctly, Carolyn didn't really want to do that because she thought it would be very hammy. And I said, no, trust me, I think this is the way we should do it, and you'll see why in the edit. Because as I'm filming, I'm editing it in my head. And I tried to explain it to Stuart as well when we were in the mortuary. The transition between Graham Cole in the mortuary and the train going past, I'd already seen it in my head. So I was explaining that to Stuart. And then with Carolyn Pickles, it was very much the same moment where I was just like, look, let's do it my way, but don't play it for laughs or play it for scares. Just do it as like this. And she did it, and she was fantastic. And I love that moment. It gives me chills because she just stares at you down the camera, and when she does that, she's staring at the audience. And she's just a phenomenal actress anyway. And we shot it her way as well, and it just didn't have it wasn't what I was looking for in the story. And I think that was something that I found a little difficult at first, was trying to convey the story and how it was going to be represented, but also B, how it was going to look as a film. Because I'm already editing it in my head, and the actors don't know. They're going to come along, read some lines, talk to everyone, have a bit of a laugh, have something to eat, and then they're going to go. They're not going to think about this film again until they see it on the big screen or whatever. So it's my job to make sure that everything, scene to scene to scene, is making complete sense narratively. And it's hard with this film because it does jump over the place a little bit in terms of the timelines. Just to confuse the audience a little bit. And the main thing is making sure that you've got tabs and you're not confusing yourself. This is last Wednesday. This doesn't make sense. And I know Stuart and I had a few phone calls where it's like, hang on, so if he's getting to the cottage and he's at the mortuary, and we were just like,
yeah,
what is it, a Wednesday? Why are we doing all this Christopher Nolan stuff? Like, but we eventually worked it out. And I think it was just because we had so long to prep that we might have over prepped possibly on some stuff. But to be honest, as soon as we hit action, and
it was quite nice. It was spread as well over a long period of time, and a lot of that was down to train strikes, because we were preparing to do this, Then there was a train strike, so we had to put off the mortuary about 3 times. So then you're going into the next year. But that, to the outside world, looks like it's a big, big project, because you start in October, November, and you're still filming in February, March. So it worked in our favour.
Yeah, definitely. And Robertsbridge is a lovely place where Stuart lives, and it's a lovely village, and it's got this quality about it which is very reminiscent of maybe a David Lynch picture, where it does look like the surroundings and everything has a certain characteristic to it, especially the mill. The mill, I fell in love with that mill. That wasn't even part of the script until Stuart and I did a recce around the area, and I thought that mill looks incredible. And I went back to Dad the very next day and said, we need to add this in as a cutaway. We don't know if it's going to be integral to the plot just yet, but keep it in mind. And then we kept writing, and then but yeah, no, that mill is incredible. And just a shout out to Lizzie Dyer at the Hospital Studios, West London Film Studios, for that mortuary. It's absolutely incredible.
Wow. There, obviously, there's a particular moment. I'm not going to mention a thing about that, because I wouldn't want to spoil anything. But okay, what can we say about it without?
I can tell you the bit you're talking about took 6 long months to do, and it was started in October.
Yeah.
And there will be a piece about this eventually in the future. Dan Grant is to thank for this, VFX artist Dan Grant. And he spent so much time and energy, and he was very meticulous about this particular bit you're talking about. And the only thing I will say is the brief that I gave him, aside from something that I can't say, the other thing I could say was ice cream, scooped ice cream.
Oh, okay.
That was what I said to him. Stuart knows. No spoilers, but yeah, that was sort of what we were going for, and it took him 6 months. And I remember he was updating Stuart and I on chats and Discord and stuff, and
all the time.
Each time it was just like, oh, this looks incredible, and then it was brilliant. And I think it really works. Personally, I think it really does. It's just like harrowing.
I think it definitely does, because there.
I haven't eaten scoop.
Haven't eaten
scooped ice cream.
Haven't eaten scooped ice cream since, because there are a lot of moments like that in short films, but also in sort of like other supernatural horror as well, where you're kind of seeing something that's just reminiscent of something maybe you've seen before, or kind of looks a bit like something else. I will say that this was something I feel like I've never seen before, so I was definitely like, okay.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
I think that's one of the things. Well, I think also, sorry for jumping in, but that's one of the things that Diane said, that Pareidolia has never been done before in any film, really. I think there's been the odd short out there, but it's never been really looked at. Yeah. And I think that's what intrigued her. That's what intrigued her about it.
Do you only see Pareidolia as a short? Do you think there could be a chance of a feature-length version? I know you said about the script being a lot longer.
That's what we hope.
Than it was. Okay. So you think?
Yeah, we're hoping it'll be more than an apron. That's for sure. So,
what could be more than an apron? What could you have?
Oven gloves, baking tray. That's what
ice cream scoops.
These badges that our visual effects artist said they look like mini baking trays.
They do.
Maybe they are. Maybe they're
a tiny little meal for a guinea pig on that.
Yeah, that's a baking tray for a borrower.
For the borrowers.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, really looking forward to seeing it on the big screen at FrightFest. How and why did you choose FrightFest for the world premiere? Was that always on the cards? I think in the back of our
Stuart will definitely attest to this. I think in the back of our minds, FrightFest has a special place in my heart anyway, because of how we were treated last year with Cult of VHS, and there were two things in the back of my mind that I really wanted to do, and that was, I really want this to do FrightFest, and I want it to have its world premiere at FrightFest. There's no better place. It's the home of horror, as far as I'm concerned, new and upcoming horror. And the other thing was, obviously, we want it to be a feature film, and you're only as good as your first festival, I think. And if you start at FrightFest, the only way is up, and
Most
that was
definitely.
really that was really important to us, and we knew a lot of people were going to be there. It was really important, and there was no nepotism involved or anything like that with FrightFest. It was I'd been chasing Paul McAvoy, saying I'm working on a new project, and I really want to submit it. I think it's I think it's got legs. I think it's really, of course, every filmmaker is going to say that about their baby, and I really wanted it to make sure it had an impact with the team at FrightFest. So thank you to Jake West as well, who's our edit consultant on the film, and really kicked my ass up and down the street, making sure that the edit was tight as it could be, story-wise and everything else. And I think, FrightFest, that's just the beginning for us as well. And if you're going to start there, there's no other better place to start.
Yeah, definitely. Most definitely. So I mean, after premiere at FrightFest, where will audiences be able to watch the short? Is it going to be available anywhere else? Is it going to be shown at any other festivals?
No, we'll do
We're
the
gonna be
festival circuit.
Yeah.
And we've got a cast and crew screening, which Diane's coming to in October at the Phoenix Arts Club, where I put on a lot of my gigs. That's on the 16th of October. Invitation only, but we are going to, because the Phoenix have allowed us to have a few more tickets. So I think 1st September, aren't we doing it or something like that? We're going to do a ballot to people. So I've already had people saying, can they come?
Oh, wow.
And so we'll open it up to the first 30 people or whatever, fans, and that can come along and meet Diane and see the film and get a badge. Not a FrightFest badge, a different badge this time.
A different badge. You can collect all the
or a little
badges.
mini baking tray for your tiny cookies.
We've also got it into the was it Film Fantastic Films or something in Manchester?
Yeah, the Fantastic Film Festival in Manchester, which is, we're part of the opening,
but
aren't
it's
we?
not. Yeah, it's not in competition. It's they don't want competition. They want it there as a centerpiece. So it's in the opening night in front of Mark Gatiss, which will be perfect.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And my friend Madeline Smith's going to be there as well. So so we're going to go up to Manchester on the Friday night for that.
Perfect.
I think the general idea is to keep it going and keep it fresh and just keep it going for as long as it can, lifespan wise. And then once we're done with the festivals, meanwhile, behind the scenes, myself and Jake West, and with the help of Dad, we are building a story and building all this leading up to a feature script, which we're really excited about.
Wow, yeah, that is super exciting, isn't it? The only other thing I was going to ask you both was what you were working on next. Is it the feature version of this, or is there something else in between that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, I'd say so. The idea is next, while this is going on with the festival circuit, we'll be working away behind the scenes, doing Pareidolia the feature. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of patience, but thankfully, Stuart, Jake, my dad, we seem to be sort of a well-oiled machine, and it's going to be daunting taking over from my dad on writing duties. But I think, I've done 2 documentaries now that are doing quite well, and then this, I think, has to be expanded in my eyes. I just have a gut feeling, and it's not my hernia, but it is a gut feeling that this is the next big thing, and it's just making sure the short film does well enough to get noticed. And thank you for mentioning the feature idea as well, because a lot of people have been saying to us, are you going to expand it? And the answer is yes, we do want to expand it. It's just making sure we do the right thing with it, because
of course,
it's my dad's story, so I'm very protective over it, and I want to make sure that if we're continuing it, if we're expanding upon it, I can't say if it's going to be a prequel, sequel, whatever. I don't want to commit to anything. I just want to make sure that it's done right and it's done respectfully.
I think something, when you're watching a really well made short film, is when you start to sort of create those ideas yourself. When you start thinking, okay, I can see the beats of this film, I can imagine how this would potentially work in a feature. I would like to spend more time with this character, I'd like to spend more time in this place, I'd like to have this idea fleshed out slightly or more. So yeah, I think that's definitely, it's got a lot of potential.
I mean, all the reason we've been doing a lot of test audience as well. I've been sending it to friends of mine in the industry, and all of them are coming back saying that they wanted more and they wanted to see more, and they could see it to be a feature. So it's there. People are asking for it already. And
definitely.
hopefully after
Demand is
FrightFest, I think Aaron will agree with me on this. When we made it, we haven't made it to win lots of laurels and stuff. That's always nice, but that isn't the end game.
No.
This is a calling card for someone to look at it and think, we can do something with this.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, so obviously I'll put the trailer link in the show notes as well for everybody to take a look at. And I'll see both of you next week at the screening as well. We'll catch up then, chat some more about it. But thanks both of you for joining me. Thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed the show, become a patron over at patreon.com/horror hangout. Thanks to Taj Easton for our theme music and to Acast for hosting the show. And thanks so much, Aaron and Stuart, for joining me.
You're very
Thank you
welcome.
for
And
having
if you want a little mini baking tray as well, definitely subscribe to the
Oh yeah,
Horror
of course.
Hangout.
I should say, Pareidolia, where can we keep up to speed with everything Pareidolia online as well? Where can all
Stuart
keep up to speed?
Stuart
For
is
the
always
setback.
updating. Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook, either under Pareidolia, there's a page on there, but mostly it's on all the Misty Moon stuff. So Twitter, Misty Moon events, Misty Moon exhibitions and events on Facebook, my personal Facebook, Instagram as well. Mr. Misty Moon, it's all out there.
Lovely. I'll put those links in the show notes as well, so everyone can check them out. Yeah, see you guys very soon, and thanks everybody for listening. Take care.